Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this QuillJS tutorial. And Quill is a project. It's basically Microsoft Word that runs inside of the browser. People commonly refer to something like this as like a WYSIWYG, which stands for what you see is what you get. So if you take the first letter of all those words, you end up getting WYSIWYG. And that's actually a common thing that we've always looked for these WYSIWYGs to help us do blogging and things like that. Now, I just recently started messing with Quill as far as being able to use it as a blogging tool. This is more built towards using, really just having a Microsoft Word inside of the browser. So what would you use something like that for? Well, if you had a company that was using some sort of product and you allowed them to write and draft documents that could be written and shared inside of the editor just as you do with Word. So what do you do when you get a Microsoft Word document? You double click on it and you open it up in Word, and you have all of these these tools at the top of it, like the bold, italics, underline. You have all of these tools even though you may just be reading some Word document letter that somebody sent to you. So Quill is the same thing. It's not made to make HTML for you, but what it does, in order for it to work, it actually writes HTML. So I find that kind of interesting because when I first looked into this, I wanted to use it as like a blogging tool where I could just create all my HTML in here. But it's not really exactly why this thing was built. And you can see that there are ways of doing that. It's not quite what it was for. So we're going to get into just the basics of how do you get going with Quill, because there's a decent amount involved, but this is all just going to be done in one video. So it's just how do I get this set up in a website. So first things first, we need to have an editor. I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code, and what I'm going to do is open up a new window here. Now Visual Studio Code, I definitely recommend it to everybody. It's not just me, it's actually a lot of people right now. It just makes writing code, I think, a lot easier for at least me. I mean, I can write a lot of it's my tool of choice basically for Microsoft and web, not just Microsoft actually, but Python and web development. But you can download it for free. It's actually cross-platform too. So anyway, when we do this, we want to go ahead and open up a folder that we're going to do this tutorial in. And I think I have a tutorials folder down here. So I'm going to create a new folder, which I will call Quill. And we're going to select this folder. I'll just say select. So now, this is really all we need. It'll open up the folder here in just a second. On the left hand side, we click on the documents, and we're going to add our first document, which is just our index.html. So let me zoom in so you guys can see it a little bit better, but what we need is just a standard HTML page. So the best thing to do with something like that, instead of having to write all the tags, is just say W3C. They probably have an example. And let's see. I'm just seeing if they have like a full form that we can just copy. There. That's what we were looking for right here. Let's go ahead and copy that, and we'll paste that into here. So, all right. So now that you have that, what we want to do is we want to add some script tags to the front, to the head portion. So underneath the title, before the closing head tag, just pause the video real quick and type this in word for word, because what this is doing, these are publicly available scripts that we need for Quill in order to work. And then we're also going to include 2 style sheets that is going to allow Quill to be styled the way we want. So once again, just make sure you pause the video and copy those in. Next thing we need to do is we need to create 2 div tags. So let's get rid of the content inside the body here, and we're going to paste this instead. It's just 2 divs, one ID for the toolbar and one for the actual editor. And then down at the bottom of our page, we're going to say and this needs to be wrapped inside of a script tag. So do an opening script tag and a closing script tag. Alright, so what this is doing is it's telling Quill, hey, I want you to use this div ID for the editor, and then it's saying here's your toolbars, and we need to actually have a toolbars option object. So I'm going to add that here. So you can see we're assigning toolbar options to toolbar, which is a property on a JavaScript object, but that toolbar option does not exist. So let's go ahead and create that. And it's just going to be an empty array for right now. Alright, so let's go to our page where we have this running. So now when we press play, we do have some styling going on. Let's take a look here. Alright, that'll work. So now we clearly need to give some options here. So what I want to do is the first thing we're going to give on our toolbar is the bold, italic, you know, the typical stuff that we normally look at on a Word doc. So let's go ahead and put it enter here, and this will be our first little argument that we're adding. So now we have our bold and underline and italics. Alright, so now if we wanted to add the block quotes to allow like people to put raw code inside of our editor, then we can go ahead and put a comma after this argument, and we'll add block quotes, code blocks. So let me show you what that's going to do. Alright, so now that allows us to actually write in raw HTML. So one of the interesting things to note, let me get out of the code block here, is that like if I were to say this is a sentence, and you look at what's being outputted here, if we right click and say inspect, then you can see that the element's actually a piece. So it's giving us HTML. And believe it or not, I actually use this for a blogging tool for hipster code, because even though it's not built for that, I still ended up turning the tool into something that makes it easier for me to blog with hipster code. Alright, so that is the block quote. Now let's go ahead and add the header tags. Sorry about that, my phone rang. So let's go ahead and add header options. And now this gives us H1, H2. So if you wanted more H1s or H3s and you wanted it to go further, then you would do that. You would just add another H header argument. So the next one is if you wanted to make lists, like bullet point lists for you know, either bullet point or numbered lists, then you would add this JavaScript object for list ordered. Now let's take a look at that. And now we can make lists. Alright, the next one's going to be to be able to add scripts. Okay. So do whatever you want with that. Our next toolbar option would be for indenting. So I can select that, indent it. And you can indent multiple times. Basically, it's using tabs. Our next argument is the direction. It completely puts it on the other side of the page. I didn't even know what the hell that did. Let me make this a little bigger. All right, so the next argument we can add to our Quill document is both size for large and small. And now instead of like actual font size, you can use this to adjust it in case you didn't want to use like a header, which is over here. Now another thing that's interesting is you can actually have a header with multiple levels. So one of the easier ways of doing the header, instead of H1, H2 like this, you could actually just replace it with something like this. It says header, and then you pass in an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that goes all the way through the headers. So now instead of over here, we have normal, and you have heading 1, 2, 3. So this is more standard with probably what you would see in Word. So that's an alternative. Now, if you needed to add a link to another HTML page or something like that, then we can go ahead and use this next tool, which is link. So we can add images, videos, and such. So let's go ahead and take a look. So now if I were to say hipster code, and then I highlight that whole thing, click on link, or maybe not. Must be giving an error message here. Alright, so the link is not working. That's not cool. That sucks. But here's the image. Now this is cool because if I were to select an image, I can like select this image, and what it'll end up doing is instead of having to save physical locations for your image, it'll actually encode it to this data parameter, which is this humongous thing. But if you ever wanted to just store that inside of a database instead of the actual image, that's an option. It's basically like a blob of data. And this does that for you. I don't know why the link's not working. That's very interesting. And it's not even throwing an error message either. So let me go ahead and add our colors. So this part's pretty cool too. Alright, so now we have colors. So I can go like this and change it to red. Like, how awesome is that? We'll make this big. So once again, that's pretty sweet. We also have the font option because that's pretty common, so we can try to change font styles. You can even have custom fonts put into this. But for right here, it just has some few basic fonts, sans serif and serif. But you can add other custom fonts if you wanted to. Alright, and then the final argument that we can pass to our toolbars options is the align. And this just allows us to center things and such. Alright, so now another thing that you may want to do is it's actually something that I did just to say, you know what, the standard for being able to take Quill and be able to transport it around is to actually turn it into something called a delta. And a delta is made so that it's a JavaScript object. And you can turn this Quill document into a delta, store the delta object, and then you retrieve the delta object, and then you redisplay it inside of this page. But the problem with something like that, in my opinion, is that you know, you would then have to have another page that doesn't have the toolbar, which is really probably the identical or the ideal way, I would say, to do something like this. But let me go into that for just a moment. So let's create a test document. So this test document is testing header. I just want to make sure that I have some formatting and everything in here. So let's go ahead and have heading, and we'll even change the color to a nice red. All right, so now we have this going on. You know what, before I even did that, damn it, I should have added the code here. So what I want to do is we're going to add a button underneath our toolbar. So we'll say button ID equals button, or we'll say save delta. Save delta. All right, so now down here in my script, before the closing script, I'm going to do a Jquery click event to listen. So I'll say save delta dot click function. So I'm listening to the click event, and then what I'm going to do is say variable delta equals quill.getContents. So it's going to get the contents of the page, but then I want to say console.log delta. That way we can see it. All right, so I just simply added this and the button, and I probably should have saved all this, but what I can do is just copy, refresh the page so it has the newest code, paste this, and I say save delta, but I need to open up a console real quick, and I want to look at the console logging. So we're going to say save delta. Here it is. This has all this stuff. It's an array of values, test document, return line, all kinds of stuff. So now, what happens if I wanted to display this information? So the question is going to be then, how do we then take the content that we saw saved and logged out as delta and then load it back in? What I want to do is I change this code here. So instead of saying var delta, I want to say window.delta. That way we're storing into the window object so we can access it. And typically this variable that you have here is what you would end up saving to a database as like JSON format. Now this we'll get rid of the console.log, but now we know that there's going to be this window.delta variable, and it's going to be the contents of the quill. So let's go ahead and take a look here. If we go in, let's go back to the page. All right, so I'm going to say this is some style header testing. I'm going to get the color and everything in here. All right, there we go. So now I'm going to save the delta, so it saves it to the window object. Now, if I actually wanted to, say I grab that value from a database and I load this page, if you just wanted to display it the way that you saw it, then obviously you don't want this entire, toolbar and everything showing up, because you just want to display the content. So you would end up having just simply the quill editor, and it would just be an empty box essentially. And then you would take that quill editor and you would then paste in your formatted code. So how would I do that? I would go in the console. Basically, you would, on the loading of the page, you would say quill dot set contents, and then you pass in the delta dot or window dot delta. That was the name of our variable. So you can see it actually did it. It looks like nothing happened, but let's go ahead and get rid of this and then press up to execute this code one more time. And boom, you see that it gets loaded. So once again, what did we do? We stored this value, which is created for us by Quill, and it's stored as a JavaScript object. So what you would end up doing is most likely storing these contents inside of a database somewhere, assuming you trust what the user is sending you. But say you were using it for a blogging tool like what I'm using it for, so you would have that saved, and then on top of that you would then, on the loading of a page, the page that you actually want a customer or user to see, you would display an empty box, the quill box, and then you'd not display the toolbar. So essentially you would just not show the toolbar at all, and that would be no problem. Then, in fact, I can even edit my HTML so it doesn't do that. I can go to the toolbar and just delete the entire thing. And we'd also get rid of our button. So basically you'd have this, and you could even get rid of the border styling. So get rid of the border. So you'd have something like this. And then now, let's delete all that. And then say console. And there you have the formatting. So that's basically how you would do it. Now the weird thing is that you would have, the ability to be able to like delete the contents of the article that they're reading, which obviously doesn't delete it for other people that load the page and load that from your database. But it's fairly interesting because in typical web pages you would never see the ability, or you don't have the ability to just delete like you're in some sort of editor. Now I was looking online, if we wanted to actually delete that, I think we could say we might, and I'm going to try this quill dot enable false and send in a false flag. Oh yeah, there, and then it deletes. So you could load it all and then run that command, and then they don't have the ability to like delete your content, which is good. Alright guys, so hopefully I answered all your questions in this tutorial series about how you can use QuillJS to your advantage for blogging, for just even having users fill out documents and having a Word document-like experience on the web. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, vote up this video, make sure you share it with your friends, and I appreciate you watching. Have a good day. Bye. Hey guys, so a lot of you ask me, how do I get my foot in the door to become a programmer? And I just want to take a moment to mention Dev Mountain Coding Bootcamp is a 12-week intensive course that focuses on the technologies of the here and now for web development. Some of the things that they're actually teaching in this 12-week course, it's geared to get you into the industry by focusing on things like Jquery, Node.js, React, Angular, how to use GitHub. So a lot of the things that you're going to need to do as a developer, as soon as you start, they're going to be teaching you in this coding bootcamp, and the entire goal is to be able to get you into the industry within 12 weeks. So if you guys are interested in learning more information about Dev Mountain Coding Bootcamp, just check out the link in the description tab of this video. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.